the last little bit is this proportional work, okay? Notice if distance is constant, okay, or displacement is constant, then work is proportional to force, right? Basically what, oops, I'm writing in highlighter, sorry. Here we go. I might write it in purple. Nope, I think I'm gonna write it in blue. What happens to one happens to the other. So if force is doubled, work doubles. If force is 1/8, work is 1/8. That's the same if force is constant, right? Notice if force is constant, you see that work is proportional, right, to displacement. Here, work is proportional to force. And you can see that because they're on opposite sides of the equation, right? If they're on opposite sides of an equation, they're going to be proportional to each other directly, right? What happens to one happens to the other. But if work is constant, which we actually had work being yellow, then we see that F is proportional to the inverse of D and vice versa. So what that means is what happens to one, I'm going to use, let's use red, right? Nope. Sorry, let's use this red, right? So for both of these guys here, what happens to one, right, happens to the other. For force and displacement, they're opposite, right? So what happens to one the opposite happens to the other. Right? And you'll see tripling the force, right? Tripling the force means 1/3 the distance. That's opposite. All right? So let's see. Elio is lifting a load of gravel 1 story high, right? That's this distance here. This 1 story, right, is my distance. Okay? How much work is done? So we're asking, right, how much work is done if Elio lifts the load 2 stories. So now, right, we have a different distance, but notice the force is the same. So what's constant? The force is constant. So F is constant. What's the proportion statement? We know the proportion statement is W is proportional to D. That is the second statement from that little box up there. I made mine look a little weird, but that should be a proportionality. Okay, what is the new work? Well, notice what happened to distance is distance, the new distance, is 2 times D, right? The first one, D is only 1 story, right? Like I did here. Whoops, I'm just going to go over that. Now he's going to lift 2 stories, right? So 2 stories is 2D. And remember we said what happens to one happens to the other. So the new work, that's going to be considered W prime, is going to be, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. W, which is the old work, times 2. It's going to be 2W. Then for B, if Elio uses 3 times the lifting force, okay, so now we're changing the lifting force, how much work is done in comparison? How much work is done in comparison? What is constant? Oh, notice it says here, for 1 story. Okay, so that means what's constant is displacement or distance. If D is constant, then it's that pink one that we outlined up there, and we would say that the proportion statement is work is proportional to force. And what happened? Well, the new force is 3 times the lifting force. It's 3F. That means the new work should be 3W. Remember, what happens to one happens to the other.